Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. I promise you, we will not show any replays of the Aiden Hutchinson injury, though if Arif Hasan somehow decides to break Luke Braun's leg, that's definitely something that could happen.
Considering it, I am Arif Hasan from the Wide Left Substack. I have recently learned that 1 + 1 = 3, which has turned into a multiplier, you guys, for the Bears.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Muddy!
Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. 60 minutes of commercial-free Vikings talk starts now.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next-level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Just to be clear, there are commercials, Luke.
Not like that, though.
They're
Not like that.
literally. All right,
paid
The bye
sponsors.
week is over. Lions week has begun. Welcome to the Minnesota Football Party. We are live. We do
it's
this
gonna be a
every
good
Monday
one.
and Thursday.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching and listening and subscribing to Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen of the new week. For your second one, check out Locked On Vikings. Luke Braun, great daily Vikings content over there. Find the audio of this show, the Locked On Vikings podcast feed, wherever you happen to get your podcasts. The 1 seed's on the line in 6 days. Vikings, Lions. It's going to be a titanic clash at US Bank Stadium. The Lions are an absolute force right now with a big win yesterday. We're going to talk plenty about that and get into our early Lions preview. Nerdy stats, early trade deadline talk. Arif's giggling for no reason, and we've got.
I'm reading James Kunau's comment. I think it's very.
It was
funny.
good. It was good.
Yeah.
I still don't know what he said, and we've got a very profitable week of bets in week 6 as well. And speaking of titanic clashes, it's turning in to one of those in our betting contest. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. The Vikings needed 2 things to happen yesterday to build a 1.5 game lead or a 2-game lead in the battle for the 1 seed in the NFC. One of them happened. Commanders lost. The other one did not happen. The Lions won to move to 4-1, 47-9 in their game before the Vikings game on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. Speaking of frauds, holy cow, Mike Zimmer might be under fire. Oh, yeah. My goodness. The
Both
Lions,
the Mikes, right?
McCarthy
and Zimmer.
Yeah.
And Jerry Jones said they're safe. We'll see about that. But
Yeah,
the
okay,
Lions
bud.
threw the kitchen sink at the Cowboys. But I think that if you're a Lions fan, you guys are having conversations, and I'm not hearing the quips.
It's just for the listeners, not for you.
It's
not
just
for me.
It's a normal Monday,
the
man.
Cowboys
That's
are
a
so
normal
bleak.
Monday.
I can't. It's. Oof.
Dude, it's
Lions
funny
are
because
only 3-3.
I like a lot of the individual people that play for the Cowboys, and I obviously hate the organization, so I'm kind of getting pulled. Like, Micah Parsons is a wonderful poster. He should keep tweeting.
It's
They're
just
frauds,
fun to
man.
see someone
Cowboys
get
have always been
disrespected on
frauds.
that level. I can't
Yeah,
like the
no, it's
Lions,
good.
but I can thank them for what they did yesterday.
Right, and
They're
the fact
frauds.
that it's the Lions doing the disrespecting feels nice. I guess I don't like the Lions anymore. They're too good to give you the pity cheer. But it's nice that it's the Lions, right, and not some other historically great team.
Not that one guy makes up for, a 45-point loss, but Michael Parsons didn't play in that game. Is that right?
I don't think so.
He's been
Because
hurt.
I watched most of
I
the
think you're
game and,
tweeting through it.
flipping back and forth, red zone, all that stuff. And I didn't see or hear his name once. And
Also,
then
James
got
Kunau
retweeted.
is on a crazy run of wonderful comments right now. Did you see this most recent one? Jerry grew up in the 50s. You'd think he'd be privy to the throes of McCarthyism. Wonderful.
Cooking right now.
Jake says Zimmer's cooked. Might be. He's taken on like 3 reputable offenses, gotten destroyed by all of them. The Lions hung 47 on the Cowboys after hanging, 42 on Seattle. They had a hook and ladder to a tackle. They had a lineman lined up as a wide receiver. They had a double reverse pass to a tight end for a touchdown. They did not care at all about the Cowboys' feelings, and that's the team the Vikings have to face on Sunday. So how do you feel, Luke Inman, about the Detroit Lions in this matchup in 6 days now?
Hey, they're playing good, man. They're playing tough for sure. 2 things I'll point out here, just top of my head, just in general. It's like, okay, I know we're going to treat this game like it's the midseason Super Bowl. I get it. This is a huge matchup, obviously, for tiebreaker, for NFC division stuff. But obviously you want to win this game. Win or lose, though. Even if we want, there's still so much season left to be played. And during that time, obviously, a lot can and will happen. So it's still, I think, all about trying to figure out how to play your best football in November, in December. The other thing I immediately think about when this matchup comes up is, I think Luke and I talked about on the postcast last week, these division games are always almost so tight and so down to the wire. It comes down to like 2, 3, sometimes 4 plays. This is going to be the 5th matchup between KOC and Dan Campbell now. So both teams know each other very well. Usually these types of matchups, these division games, you go to bed thinking about 2 or 3 plays that if any one of them went the other way, it would have swung the outcome of this game. So I'm expecting a dogfight, a 4-quarter battle. I don't expect either team to blow the other team out. All the cliches will probably come to fruition at the end of this one, and it's probably going to be about the team who makes the least amount of mistakes. That team probably ends up winning this game in the end.
I do like that clip about division games after seeing what Tampa Bay just did to New Orleans.
Gosh. That NFC South, man, it's a cartoon.
There are so many broken teams right now. It's so crazy. Like, there's so many teams that just don't exist.
Including
like the Panthers, you're not a team.
Like the Saints were the best team in football after 2 weeks, quote unquote.
Well, I mean, Spencer Rattler is starting. Like, that's a really critical component to how
the Seahawks haven't won since they were 3-0. The Steelers did win yesterday, but they've been struggling. Like, the good teams early are not the good teams right now.
Yeah, and go ahead.
For the Vikings.
The Vikings.
Except the Vikings. I was going to say, and to your point, Luke, the Panthers are not a real team. I was watching the 3:00 games. The only game that was a 1-possession game in the 4th quarter was the Falcons and the Panthers. Yeah. Like, figure that out. Like, what do we do?
Kirk Cousins.
NFC South is just,
I mean, of course, it's the Kirk Cousins game. That's just what he does.
That's what he does.
But like, the Falcons, the Kirk Cousins broke his, 10-game whatever streak of having 1-score games, right? Because that finished with, an 18-point win for the Falcons, right? So
it's so dark. Yeah. Like, the Raiders, it's so dark. Like, there's so many teams that are just like...
had this year where any minute or any second of play involved more than 1 score, which is crazy.
My goodness.
Yeah, wow. So the first second of play that he's had was against the Panthers.
This is the 4th year of this for him. How is he alive?
I don't know, man. That's stressful. That's got to hurt your heart.
Meanwhile, the NFC North, since the Vikings last played a week ago Sunday morning, the NFC North went 5-0. They're 4-2, 4-2, 4-1, 5-0. Like, there's probably a path here. There's probably a worst-case scenario universe where the Vikings still could finish last in the NFC North. The way that it's going,
and like 10-7
playoffs.
Yeah,
you could see 4 NFC North teams in the playoffs, and I'm looking at who else? The Cowboys?
Well,
no,
right.
Yeah, that's
what other divisions are sending other teams? Like the Eagles, they're cooked. I mean,
Eagles are cooked. Yeah, the Commies are just running away with that thing.
NFC West, nobody's over 500 in the NFC West. Okay, 49ers, they're going to get healthy and they're going to get dangerous.
That is wild.
Who scares you in the NFC West? We already talked about NFC South.
Yeah, the one team that scares you, the Vikings beat them. So, whatever.
Yeah, they already beat.
We're good. I still
but they
feel
could end up somebody in the NFC North could end up or even a couple teams could end up 11-6 and playing road games.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And having to travel a 9-8,
Niners, Niners
are
9-8, and
yeah. I still feel like it. has that ever happened? 4 teams from one division go to the playoffs?
Hasn't
not
even
in
been
the current
possible.
format. It's only like a
Yeah.
3-year-old format.
Yeah,
But no, it is not.
there's
We
only
have-
been one division game, right? I'm saying there's so many division games left on the slate. That means
Yeah,
yes,
they'll all
a
beat
lot of
each
wins,
other
but a
up.
lot of losses though too
Yeah.
still have to happen. So
Yeah.
Which like the
That's
point
it.
differential stats, like I talked about
Oh
them
my
on Locked
God.
On Vikings. That so the top 4
Crazy.
teams right now in point differential are the Vikings, the Lions, the Packers, and the Bears.
Yeah.
And which is wild, and that has never happened since like 1942 when it was the NFL West, I think, which was also the Bears, the Packers, the Lions, and the Chicago Cardinals. However, because the NFC North hasn't really played itself, it has had a lot of opportunities to like stack up more point differential because they're not taking points off of each other yet.
By the way, do you know why they're named the Chicago Cardinals?
I don't know why
Has
they were the
nothing-
Cardinals.
Is
though.
it like
Nothing to
the
do with the bird.
religious word cardinal?
Nope. That's the color of the University of Chicago. They wanted to attract you Chicago fans, who at the time I believe had a football team, which is also funny.
That does make sense for like that period of time.
Yes. Yeah. And then it turns out it's also a bird. So when they moved to Phoenix and then just made themselves
that
moved
hasn't been
around
proven
everywhere.
yet. We don't. know that.
They also
We don't
were
know
almost the Minneapolis Cardinals. That was a thing that was going down before the AFL decided to give the Minnesota market a team, which then bailed on the AFL, pissing off a lot
and
of
then they
people.
stabbed him in the back. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was great.
pissed off a lot of
Stabbed him
people.
in the back.
But no, they actually had a couple of exhibition Cardinals games in the Met Stadium as like a test to see if Minnesotans would like come out and watch the games, and they did. As it turned out, the timing didn't work out for them to like sell
Well,
directly to
and George Preston
Minneapolis.
Marshall
but-
was staunchly opposed to expansion in any form. So
That was nerdy trivia of the day, courtesy
Yeah, there
of
you go.
Braun and
Look at
Arif
that.
Hasan. Skolt's UAI catch, wondering like why are people acting like the Lions win was impressive? The Lions have played the easiest schedule so far.
I think
well,
if you
I
They
beat
held
Eighty
47,
like-
dog.
yeah,
there was
like-
there have only been 13 teams in the last 15 years that have won on the road by that margin.
Yeah, on
That's
the
a
road.
good win, regardless of opponent.
was it like a 5 touchdown margin? You can't like that's
38?
That's
That's not
always
NFL.
yeah.
That's Alabama versus App State. Like that's making it look like the NFL has no cupcakes. This is the thing. The NFL, the difference between the best team in the NFL and the worst team in the NFL is probably the difference between like if you watch like a college team, the best team in a college conference, and like the 5th best team in a college conference.
Right, like the 3 worst NFL teams I've ever seen. The 2018 Bills, who beat the Vikings, by the way. That was a crazy team. The 2-win Jaguars, who still won 2 games, by the way. And then, actually, I think the 016 Lions aren't the worst, and they got a real... the Dan Orlovsky game was a real close game.
That game was 10-12. The Dan Orlovsky out the end zone. That play was the difference. In
Yeah,
that game.
that was the difference. But like the first 0-win Browns team, and that team was in some games. Like they did not regularly get blown out by 5 touchdowns.
The Panthers are on pace for a worse point differential than the 17 Browns. That's how bad the Panthers are right now.
And teams have made the playoffs with a worse point differential than the 17 Browns. In 2010, the Falcons. Like that, it's...
Dude, did the
like-
Bengals go 0-16 once? Because I remember Marvin Lewis going, "We're not gonna go 1-15 again next year. I promise you that." And they didn't.
No.
I think
No,
they
only
went-
2 have ever
Only
gone
credit.
winless. 08 Lions and the 17 Browns. But like, okay, to your point. So what? Like, how is the Cowboys aren't that impressive, sure, and maybe squeaking one past them maybe isn't that impressive. But when you do what the Lions did to that, where you not only beat them a lot, but also
Play with
in
your
their
food.
own house, and also with a level of disrespect I don't think
Yeah.
I've seen in an NFL game in a while.
Multiple throws to offensive linemen.
They
right?
called a
Like,
lot of tackle eligible plays just to make a point.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you had Mike Zimmer having to sit down and watch Cooper Rush take the field because his defense was getting so badly smoked. Like, that was a biblical shellacking that I don't know if that organization can come back from. Like, that's not something you just bounce back and say, okay, we'll get them next week. Like, you have
When
to
the
ask
Lions
serious questions about if you have the right job for yourself.
when
Dude,
the
they
Lions
saw
are
Hendon
finding out
Hooker
Hendon
on the
Hooker,
field.
yeah,
Hendon
that's
Hooker
it.
was
It's
on the
over,
field.
man.
Sam's
Yeah.
guy, notoriously Sam's guy,
Yeah.
Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, Sam's
Dude,
guy.
Sam.
Yeah.
And then
Whoa.
Hooker minutes.
Yeah.
Dude,
Congratulations.
That game was
He won
over.
the backup job.
That game was over
Eked out
going into
Nate
the fourth
Sudfeld.
quarter. Like they were both
At
in run it out
halftime.
mode with 14 minutes left. It was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, at
you probably
halftime,
sooner
Jared
than
Goff
that.
had like
Yeah.
16 attempts, and I had the under on 33 and a
right.
half passing attempts. And
What
I was
made
like,
you
this is
pick
looking
that?
great for me. Oh, is it because I just felt like the Lions were just going to be, or the Cowboys were just going to be weaker against the run, so I
Yeah,
thought they were just
they
going
were
to
just
lean on the
run
run more.
yeah.
I did not think they would win by 5 touchdowns and bench Goff.
Right.
Like,
Uh,
that
did-
was not the thought process.
Digits makes a good point here in the chat. Big OL run test is here for the Vikings.
yeah.
This is arguably
Yeah.
a top 3 run offense against the Vikings run defense that's also been top 3. Are they truly a good run defense, or have
Top-
teams just been forced to throw against them?
Both. So they're top 3
They've been
in
efficient.
essentially every measure, right? So both in volume and per play efficiency,
Yeah.
yards per carry, EPA per play, whatever you want to use to measure run success rate. They're top 3 in all of those. But also, everyone's throwing the ball against them instead of running the ball, and that has less to do with how scary it is to run the ball and you prefer to throw it, and more to do with the game script and how they have to keep on engineering comebacks and stuff like that. So that doesn't have much to do with the Vikings' run defense, but when they've been tested, and they've been up against good running teams, up against the 49ers, right? You know, the Jets are supposed to be a good running team. I guess they're not. But, you know, like holding down Breece Hall, that's not bad. But they've been up against like some pretty decent run games and have done very well on a per play basis. And when you take a look at Ivan Pace has improved so dramatically as a linebacker. There's so much more he has to do to get better. But, you know, last year he was kind of only a blitzer that was occasionally useful in the run game. This year he's like legitimately turning into a pretty good run defender, right? That's really helpful. Blake Hashman, pretty good, right? Harrison Phillips is turning in some monstrous games. That's helping out a lot. Jonathan Bullard's become a better run defender than I ever remember him being. Like, there's like good Patrick Jones, great run defender. There's like some good stuff here. I think that they, you know, probably haven't gone up against an offensive line like the Lions, but like I think that they're probably a pretty good run defense.
The real test, because those guys are playing well, and part of what they're doing is like making plays that blow stuff up, right? Like getting penetration into the backfield or just beating a guy across the face the way they're not supposed to. And that's ruining angles enough to like either just collapse a play and make it so that the fact that they're often at a numbers disadvantage doesn't work out. The Vikings line up in too high a lot. Like a lot. There's a lot of they don't like to just roll a safety down into the box like they're the 2013 Seahawks. They're either in a cover zero crazy look with everybody on the line, or they're often lining up too high. And with that one fewer player, there's usually going to be a gap. So when teams have run on the Vikings, it's really been that they've found that gap, and Harrison Smith has to come up and make the tackle because he's the one in charge of that gap. But by the time he gets there, you've already gotten 8 yards. But when somebody like Jonathan Bullard crosses their face, or somebody like Ivan Pace goes and makes some crazy ghost move play that, you know, blows it up in the backfield, it takes that disadvantage away. And the question will be if those guys can not only hold their own, but can still be like explosive and disruptive playmakers in too high, or will we have to start bringing guys down into the box and, you know, start kind of tail between our legs, say, okay, we'll play you straight up, which will of course make things a lot harder in the pass.
Yeah, I'm pretty curious about how many Josh Metellus snaps we're gonna get, right? Because, you know, being in 3 safety is traditionally supposed to be somewhat of a weakness against run-heavy looks. You know, it depends obviously how often the Lions go heavy, you know, whether or not they go 2 tight end a lot, 2 running back a lot, put in another tackle a lot, which of course, you know, they want to do a lot. And if that forces a shift in personnel for the Vikings, and if the Vikings are going to bring Kamu Grugier-Hill on in those circumstances. I mean, because like Flores does a pretty good job. Like we think of them now as a 3 safety team, but I mean, if we're being honest, Flores does a really great job of tailoring what that, you know, personnel matchup is going to be to the opponent's game plan that he anticipates. And so far, he's done a really remarkable job anticipating what the opponent's game plan is going to be.
More Lions Vikings talk plus trade deadline acquisitions for the Vikings. It's 3 weeks away. We'll discuss that and more coming up on the Minnesota Football Party. We're presented today by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They've got the tools to help find the right pros for your team faster and for free. The reason LinkedIn works so well is because it's not your average everyday job board. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. They might not be actively searching, but they see the listings on LinkedIn Jobs, and that opens the door for a potential hire. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours on LinkedIn. Hire professionals like a professional. Small businesses wear a lot of hats. LinkedIn helps with that. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL, linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This show is also sponsored by BetterHelp. It's Halloween season. Let's have some fun with what scares us. But what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing your fears in the first place and holding yourself back. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is totally online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Make sure the setup is right for you. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. We are Inmanless at the moment. We'll press on with Braun and Hasan. Trade deadline, 3 weeks from tomorrow. Nothing else significant going on November 5th, I don't think, other than the NFL trade deadline. So that's a date that everybody's going to have circled on their calendar. We've had some questions coming in about thoughts on this for the Vikings. Again, NFL trade deadline, usually not that sexy, not a lot of big moves, but Vikings obviously could be in a buying situation if they want to fortify any position. The capital the Vikings have is not abundant. I mean,
nothing.
I think you would have to offer a 2026 mid-round. You've got basically like an extra fifth to throw around in 2025. The name that I think I would circle, kind of Aaron Jones dependent, would be Travis Etienne. I mean, if you're looking to add a back, maybe Jones' hip injury is lingering. You could also solve for your 2025 running back situation. If you don't anticipate getting Aaron Jones back, Travis Etienne has a club option, super affordable in 2025, and he's kind of been usurped in Jacksonville. I think that would be the logical back if you were to pursue someone at that position. Thoughts, Luke Braun?
I could see him going somewhere for those reasons. I don't know if Minnesota's that place. With Aaron Jones's injury being like a week-to-week thing, right? Like if he were out for the season, I could see them doing something because they only have one healthy running back on the roster. I could see the Vikings adding a running back, but it's going to be depth. As much as like Ty Chandler was frustrating in London, but he couldn't get his footing. And so I kind of feel like it's easy to write that one off. And we've been pretty excited about him in the other 4 games when he's come in. So I think if Aaron Jones can't go, Ty Chandler gets the chance to start. Like, I know that's the boring answer, but that's probably how things go. And then we're talking about poaching off someone's practice squad or something like that. Or, you know, picking up somebody, some street free agent that's walking around, some name you haven't thought about in 3 years that can maybe come in. Or
Jarek.
There you go.
Jarek.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Or bringing in somebody that is literally just on the practice squad. You bring Myles Gaskin back to the 53-man roster, and then somebody who's going to be on the practice squad, and they're the game day elevation. That's the third guy, but really it's Chandler and Gaskin are the guys. You pick Ty Chandler as your backup running back with basically no competition for that outside of what Kenny Nwangwu, who you cut. Like he's the second guy. He is the backup running back, not in a way that like Jaren Hall was technically the third quarterback, but he could be replaced at any point by a waiver claim, which he was. Like that feels more legit to me. So it's going to be Ty Chandler, I would guess. And it's also like just a couple weeks. You don't have to start throwing around draft picks just for a couple weeks.
Yeah, it is just a couple weeks. I'll say this. I don't think that the Vikings have enough capital to trade. If you're selling, you want to turn around that draft capital quickly, you're probably not selling people for primarily 2026 picks. I think you want 2025 picks. Now, obviously, every price is up to negotiation, but sometimes it's just really difficult when you don't have capital, and the Vikings just simply do not have 2025 capital. I also don't think you trade to resolve what it seems like a 2-week injury. I don't know, like 3 weeks? I don't know. But it doesn't seem like it's an injury that's going to be 8 weeks or anything like that. Maybe you trade for a running back in that scenario. But yeah, I don't know. Like Luke said, obviously Ty Chandler was frustrating. But the thing is, like, you could compare Aaron Jones' production in the game to Ty Chandler's, but the field got worse in the second half, right? And that's when Chandler got most of his touches. It's really just a really unfortunate situation for the purpose of comparison. I think that the only thing that kind of makes sense, and Matthew Collar kind of spun this out, I think twice on his Substack at Purple Insider. Brandon Sheriff.
Yep.
Jaguars are selling. He's good, actually. Is familiar with running in a wide variety of schemes. I don't think he and O'Connell overlapped at Washington, but certainly, the style of play that you have at Washington when he was there kind of maps onto what the Vikings do, especially with like a lot of duo nowadays. That might be it, but I just don't know what you would trade away to get him, right? And that's kind of...
And that's a rental. That's a half-year rental, so it's not...
And yeah,
you're not getting like a good deal down the road, so it wouldn't cost as much for that reason, which is decent.
Like,
James
if it's
that
somebody
they were there together, and I'm going to trust that without looking it up, so thank you, James.
if they want to make like a splashy move, then they kind of have to make a move that costs that first rounder just because that's what they have. And if it is a half-year rental,
third and a fourth, and it's fine. Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, you give up your first and you get a bunch of mid-round stuff in Sheriff. Maybe that's the move. Yeah. But like, if they're going to make that splash, yeah, you probably want to do that, and you want it to be something like the TJ Hockenson trade was, where it wasn't just a rental for the year. That was
Swerve 95 is suggesting Chuba Hubbard, and for whatever reason, I like that a lot more than Travis Etienne.
Is Chuba still with Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Miles Sanders has been floated as well as another.
I
another
like
option.
Chuba. No.
We also super overestimate how much like teams that are bad are just going to go into like full fire sale mode.
Yeah, they really don't do that.
Like,
I just think
not in this league. That's a basketball thing.
Yeah, but when we get to kind of end of contract type players, that's kind of when you get to, and even then it's kind of tough.
Right.
Like
and they come from 500 teams or good teams. Like those are like, because team control, years of team control are such an important resource to everybody that like even teams that are bad right now don't think they're going to be bad in 2 years, and they're not going to just start like selling off players that would help them in 2 years when they think maybe that'll matter.
Let's see if Inman agrees with us after not having heard our arguments. We're talking trade deadline, Spinman, as he makes his triumphant return. Thoughts on the trade deadline? Buyers? What position would you buy? Who might you buy? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, top to bottom, overall, I've been pretty impressed with our depth. Like, I think about, okay, Ivan Pace went out, was it the Texans game? Grugier Hill comes in, fills in great, gets an interception on the first drive. Been pretty rock solid just in general. I was a little worried about the linebacker depth just heading into the year. Felt kind of top-heavy. Jordan Addison misses a couple games. Jalen Naylor comes in, makes a couple big plays. He's been rock solid. All in all, I think just recency bias. I know everybody's worried about the running back position if Aaron Jones goes out. I will say, of all the positions, that feels like the easiest transition to trade a guy, have him come in, and end up having him play, within a week or two and be somewhat effective. I'm looking at the running back list, though, or just maybe guys that would be available. I mean, yeah, you can go get like a Dameon Pierce or something. It just doesn't really move the needle that much for me. One guy that I think would kind of be funny, though, Treylon Burks. He's been terrible for the Titans. Was actually good as a running back at Arkansas. First-round pick. Maybe he only goes for a 6th or 7th rounder. Maybe.
Let's
no,
bring
listen.
in a really
listen.
bad receiver and see if he's better at another position.
Listen.
It worked for Tyrone Tracy. Of course, he had to sit for a year.
No, listen.
Yeah, Cordero Patterson learned running back learned a different new position. It only took him like 5 years.
No,
and like
this
6 teams.
This is your redemption arc for what you did to Cordero Patterson. This is your redemption arc right here. You bring Treylon Burks in. For a 6th.
You're the
It's
most
so
college
galaxy brain,
dude.
man. It's gonna be
Yeah.
some guy you haven't thought of since the 4th round of the 2021 draft.
Yeah, it's
that's
like,
always what it is.
The equivalent of
yeah,
Alfred
100%.
Blue was that year, right? Like,
Alfred
just like,
Blue.
right.
Oh man,
It's gonna be a Ben Tate. Like, he's gonna show up. He's gonna get 3 carries. We're gonna be like, oh, Ben Tate, and then we're gonna forget about him. Like
As
that's
long as
the
it's
world.
not Miles
And
Sanders.
Ben Tate
I see
carrying the
Dameon
ball
Pierce.
out like it's like a piece of bread all the way out over here. Hey, why is he fumbling so much, man? I don't know.
Well, the other thing too is, I mean, okay, Ezra Cleveland, that would be hilarious just for the laughs. Okay, what's he going for? Hey, by the way, yesterday on the ticker, I almost texted you guys. Vidarian Lowe leaves the Patriots game with a neck injury. Wow. Okay, Vidarian Lowe was starting. Luke, I think you brought that up. Patriots
he was
offensive
their
line,
third
man.
tackle.
Holy
Dude,
smokes,
it's so
dude.
bad that they brought
Yikes.
in a guy off of somebody else's practice squad. They benched their center that game, started that guy, and then they were like, "Oh, that guy's way better than the guy that we had in camp for like 3 months."
Which
and they
kind of
cut
says
him.
something, doesn't it?
Yeah, a guy that's been cut.
Which might say something. Yeah, get Drake May out of there.
It's such a bummer about Lowe. He had like taken a
Yes.
step forward, and it was like, oh, development
He
is
could be-
starting. Maybe in a year or two,
Yeah.
and then he's thrown into just like hell.
Thrown at the Wolves.
Yeah,
yeah.
He's like where the Vikings offensive line was in like 2014 when they cycled through like 80 injuries.
Yeah.
2015
Yeah.
when TJ Clemmings was the 3rd right tackle, and it's like, oh,
Andre
the first right
Smith.
tackle retired. The second one was Andre Smith, so he got hurt.
Yep.
So now TJ Clemmings, step on
Good
up.
luck.
Step on
Like
up.
I think Lowe's first start was like just a whole game of Max Crosby. It's like, oh my god, that's gonna break him.
Dude, Poor guy. Come on, man.
Oh
Poor
my
guy.
God, man.
Quasey likes to wheel and deal, though, doesn't he? Ross Blacklock, Jalen Rager, Ezra moved on.
Well, if we're taking into account Quasi's
Well,
tendencies, let's
four.
look for injured players to trade for and see if we can.
Was Cam Akers an
That'll work.
acquisition, a deadline acquisition?
I
I
think so.
can't remember if it was.
No,
was
he
not?
joined at like week 2.
Okay,
Oh.
okay.
Because he
was
joined the
in
same time
season,
Reisner
though.
Was
joined.
that a
in
trade
season.
or a
That's
waiver?
right.
A waiver
in
claim.
season.
I think it was a trade, but
No, it was a
but
trade. Remember,
you know what it
like
was? It was a trade
nothing. It
for
was like
a
sixth and
conditional pick,
sixth. Yeah,
but the conditions were not met, so it was a trade for nothing.
yeah, it was a trade for
Nice.
Pete. Even right away, everybody knew, like, okay,
They
these
would have
probably are
definitely
never
been
gonna
met,
get
but then he got hurt.
Oh, it was actually close. He was on pace. Oh, okay. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. The other thing too is like what I don't know what you guys were talking about, but like what a big splash like the Hockenson thing. Like, okay, he's got that on his resume. Doesn't have a lot of ammo though next year to really move
Right. That's
for
the
a
thing.
big splash though, right? So
Wish-
I don't know
wish
what
you were
names
here
you
for
guys
most of
flung
the
out, but
conversation, Luke.
well, what kind of names? Who was the one that flung out like a big name
we brought
or a
up
splash?
we brought up Travis Etienne, Chuba Hubbard, Brandon Sheriff. You mentioned
Jaguars.
Ezra Cleveland, which was brought up like
I would love
last week.
Sheriff. I don't know what that would go for, but
Yeah, so he's at the end of his contract, so it's possible, right?
Okay.
That wouldn't cost too much, but
as far as trading or making a big splash for a big name too, you know, I've heard these discussions take place with Devontae Adams a lot. Like any team who trades for him, they're going to make the Raiders eat a lot of that contract. Vikings, though, in a position salary cap wise, remind me where they have a little flexibility. If that was the case, if a situation like that took place, they could eat some cap, right? They got some room. Is that right?
That's interesting.
yeah, they've a little bit of room.
Oh, I have a
So-
name.
Let's hear it.
Practice
look
squad of the Steelers, I believe, right now. Boston Scott.
Hey, kick returner / power back, the LeGarrette Blunt of the modern NFL.
Yeah.
I think ultimately I'd be surprised if the Vikings were splashy in any way at the deadline. I think capital is probably reason number one, or lack thereof.
Yeah, they got 11 in cap space, by the way. So, I mean, there's a little wiggle room, but
That's
if they had to eat somebody,
Yeah.
you know, half
Yeah.
of somebody's like a Brandon Sheriff contract, I'm just saying.
That
Whatever,
is
whoever it
like
may be.
what that money is for.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to have some wiggle room going into the year. Yeah.
Jaquelin Roy, 2 sacks for the Patriots yesterday, says Matt.
Yeah.
Wow, good for him.
Wasn't his fault he got takied.
Also, the Vikings waived Jalen Redmond. Is this one of those deals where he's back on the practice squad tomorrow?
They
Probably.
already
I think he
announced
already is,
that
yeah.
he's going to sign,
Okay.
or not they, but one report.
It's been reported, yeah, he's going to sign back. So they've got a roster spot, which is either for TJ Hockenson or whatever running back waiver claim they want to make.
I assume it's to promote a running back. So
True,
If
because
they
Gaskin is
open-
currently not on the active roster. So yeah,
right,
it's
so
either
you
for
make
him or-
you make Gaskin active and then sign a running back to your practice squad and then
Yeah.
elevate him.
Do you guys see any scenario where TJ Hawkinson doesn't play in this game? With the fact that he was activated and practiced before the game in London tells me that he's got to be ready. I think he's playing.
Yeah, so that's been the target. If not, then they're days away, and then as funny as it is on a short week, it would be the Rams game, and then it has to be after that. If it's not those two, because then the 21-day window is over, and if it's not that, then you would have to say that there was like a setback or another injury or something.
Yeah, setback, and then permanent IR or whatever, which would suck, obviously.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I think the plan is this game. I don't know that they 100% believe that that they're or I should say I don't think that they're 100% confident, right? But I think that they're like 80% confident he'll be at a playable level.
I don't care if they have to pitch count him. That's fine. If you have to limit him to 35 snaps because he's going to play 2 games in 4 days, that's fine.
I'm sure they will, regardless. Either way, right? Even if there wasn't a Thursday game, coming back from an injury like that, I don't know. I don't expect him to play 90% of the snaps, even not in that first game. That would surprise me, I guess.
What's cool about Hockenson is that we've seen him come in after a trade. We've seen him come back after getting banged up. He's never shown that he needs a long on-ramp to be ready to produce.
Yeah.
He's on the field, and he is a production monster.
He's been quarterback-proof. I love to bring up that Dobbs Saints game, too. Like, at halftime, 7 catches, $140, whatever. Yep. Doesn't matter who's in there. He's solid. He's consistent.
Yeah. He goes. Yeah.
When we return on the Minnesota Football Party Nerdy Stats, other Week 6 thoughts, and our Week 6 gambling update, that's coming up here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Early line is out on FanDuel for Vikings-Lions. The Vikings are favored by 1.5. Money line -126 at US Bank Stadium. It is going to be awesome. And if you have a hunch about that game or another game and you are new to FanDuel, take advantage of this great deal. With your first $5 bet, whether you win or lose, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So you can have a live hunch. You can bet in-game before the game, make a future bet on the Vikings to win the division or something. That's all at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com, all the lines, all the leagues, and it's a whole lot of fun during the heart of the NFL season. Bet 5, get 200 for new customers. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Shout out to the everydayers who are tuned in right now, those that watch after the fact, and those that listen on the Locked On Vikings audio feed. Time for everybody's favorite segment.
Analytics fans rejoice.
Woo-hoo-hoo!
It's time to get educated.
Whoa, you're blowing my mind right now.
With the nerdy stat of the day.
How about Arif Hasan kicks us off? Nerdy stats.
Yeah, sure. So I noticed earlier in the chat someone was talking about the really high pressure rate that the Vikings are suffering under. I would posit that that is not the offensive line's fault, even though we were talking about, bringing in, a right guard to replace Ed Ingram in pass protection, potentially. We talked about it last show, while that's going to be unlikely. But one thing to kind of keep in mind is that the Vikings, either because it's Sam Darnold or, in my opinion, more likely, a result of offensive design, the time to pressure is one of the longest in the NFL. I think it's like the fourth longest in the NFL. So time before pressure appears on pressured plays is like the fourth longest in the NFL. It depends on which organization you're looking at. I think PFF has them fifth, Fantasy Points has them third, something along those lines. But it's one of the longer ones in the NFL. Time to throw on pressured plays ranks fourth in the NFL, no matter what organization I was looking at. That includes NFL Pro, which uses next-gen stats. That includes PFF. That includes Fantasy Points. All of this is to say that the Vikings offensive line, which ranks ninth, I think, in pass block win rate, I think that one's ESPN's, they're doing a pretty good job play-to-play, player-to-player, in preventing pressure from appearing quickly. But the Vikings are taking advantage of that by holding onto the ball and creating more explosives. That's going to result in a very high pressure percentage. Now, luckily, Sam Darnold has a relatively low pressure to sack ratio. He ranks like 13th at 22%, or between 9th and 13th at 22% in the percentage of pressures that turn into sacks. So he's doing a pretty good job, but not an unsustainably good job where you wonder when it's going to regress, like with Bo Nix, where it did regress, right? It is generally a situation where the Vikings are taking on that additional time in order to produce more explosives. The Vikings are a really good explosives team. And so I don't think that we should not conceive of this as an offensive line problem. We should think of this as a bargain the Vikings are making, and they're winning.
Luke Braun.
So for context, according to NFELO, which is they have like an ELO metric for strength of schedule, the Vikings have had the 4th hardest strength of schedule. I don't think I'm on very unsafe ground saying that. For that time, they have spent 6.8% of all 5 of those games with 60% or less win probability. They have been above 60% for 93.2% of those games against the 4th hardest schedule in the league.
Wow.
By the way, by that same metric, the rest of their remaining strength of schedule is 14th. So it's not exactly all cupcakes. They still got the Lions twice and all that, but you do have some teams that
A lot of just divisional games there. I mean, that's
Jaguars still in the sights.
and the Titans.
Wow.
And
or
the
whatever's
Cardinals.
left of them.
Yeah, one of those 3 is going to really tick us off. I know that.
Ooh, is
Yeah.
that is the
I'm
Jaguars
calling the
game
Cardinals
post-
game. Cardinals game is going to be like a really
That one sounds good.
look. It's an NFL season. You are going to lose a couple you're not supposed to. Like that's just how it goes. Nobody ever doesn't ever.
Is that Jaguars game pre-deadline or post-deadline? It is November 10th, post-deadline.
Wow. Just
We don't get our little preview.
So maybe we can get Ezra Cleveland back for it.
We don't
Some
get to
people
go
said.
through like the little menu during the game. Order off.
Could
Brandon
that be
Sheriff's
the
looking good
game
today.
where the Jaguars have the new coach bump? Could they have an interim that propels them?
There you go.
By
Who's
the
on
way,
the staff?
statistically speaking, the new coach bump is real. I am convinced it's mostly regression, but it does exist. Whether or not it is a meaningful bump, different one. But
Yeah.
teams perform better.
Speaking
I
of
wonder if new
regression,
coaches like do something different. Like you a new guy takes over and says, "Okay, this time we're gonna do something a little spicy because I just got this job and it's interim." And that maybe that's hard to game plan for.
Potentially, but it is hard to install a completely new look in a week. I do think
like
that
a
there's
formation or
just some
something,
wrinkles.
something
just a
manageable.
wrinkle or two, though.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think that there is something kind of in terms of like player motivation and the feeling in the building. I'm pretty confident that might play a role. But I think the primary driver of this is that coaches get fired after the worst game that team has had. They're just going to be better whether or not you fire that coach.
Right. The bar is low at that point.
Yeah.
two great Vikings connections.
Oh, by the way,
on
Doug
Jaguars
Analytics
staff.
On my win probability stat. Doug Analytics, that's who that came from.
Great account, by the way. Follow it. Doug Analytics.
The possible interim could be motivational force Phil Rauscher, former Vikings offensive line coach, current Jaguars offensive line and run game coordinator, and Heath
Yeah, I'm
Farwell.
sure he's feeling spicy.
Keith Farwell. special
Oh my
teams
gosh.
coordinator.
Wow.
Yeah, bud.
Oh. I love that.
Look
I
out.
love the
Farwell-
special teams. I love the special teams upgrades.
He's
Yeah,
been one of the better
teams
special
is-
teams coordinators in the league for a while now. Yeah,
Yeah.
Hey,
I feel like he did it for the
that,
Steelers
that
for forever.
feels
They were
like
always
that could be an interim.
Well,
choice,
you got
too.
and then you've got like Ezra Cleveland. You've got God, what was it? Oh yeah, you've got Keenan McCardell on the coaching side. That's not really a revenge though. They wanted him back, but still revenge.
Yeah.
Who's the Vikes special team coordinator that
Matt Daniels.
interim for a game or two? Prefer? Cowboys game? Thursday night
Prefer.
game? Or
Yeah,
something?
Prefer
Yeah.
did the
Yeah,
Cowboys,
close
and then
game,
Prefer
we
also
lost.
coached the Browns playoff win, the only Browns playoff win they've had in the whole Stefanski era. So Kevin Stefanski still has not won a playoff game as a head coach.
Wow, that is a great stat right there. That's a great nugget. I got one here. We were joking about the NFC South. We were joking about that Saints-Bucks game. Bucks had 594 yards of offense yesterday. Second most ever given up by the Saints. Do you want to guess which Vikings offense holds the record for the most offensive yards versus the Saints in the Saints franchise history?
I don't know.
2004.
How'd you know, Sam? Sam
Wow.
comes in sneaky like this once in a while. Like I don't know where you got that or if you read it beforehand, but Dante Culpepper led the
Sunday
Vikings. Sunday, 605 yards in the 2004 win. They only won by a touchdown, by the way.
Oh, I was thinking yards against. So I was like, is that not Christmas? Alvin Kamara.
Big game for Jermaine
right.
Wiggins that night.
I was going to say Culpepper had 5 touchdown passes. He had 425 yards through the air. Moss only caught one of those touchdown passes. Do you want to guess who the other two that caught 2 touchdown passes?
Wiggins.
Jake
Wiggins.
Moweldy
People's elbow.
Moore.
Jake Reed wasn't on the 04 team, was he?
Who'd you say?
No.
Wiggins, that's good.
I said Moweldy Moore. I don't know.
Moweldy Moore and Mo Williams combined for 88 yards on the ground. So you combine that with Culpepper's 425, and you get close to the 6.
Kelly Campbell.
Close. Marcus
Wow.
Robinson had
Marcus
2 touchdowns.
Hey!
Marcus Robinson.
Jermaine Wiggins
South
had
Carolina,
2
right?
touchdowns.
Man.
Yeah, South Carolina, good.
He was
And then,
eventually wide receiver 1 on the Vikings a couple
yeah.
years later.
Oh,
It got dark.
Oh, yeah.
It got dark.
It got bleak.
Brad Johnson to Marcus Robinson and Travis Taylor.
Travis Taylor.
Kelly Holcomb year, baby.
Kelly Holcomb.
That was also Childress. A lot of uninspiring characters. My nerdy stat is
KAO, Childress, yeah.
Oh,
A
also,
non-nerd.
by
That was
the
the
way,
Mike Tomlin year,
also-
2006.
Also,
Whatever
that-
happened to that guy?
That game also took place, 38-31 victory versus the Saints, also took place in week 6 as well. So Saints week 6, not good historically.
Saints week 6, bet against
Watch
it.
out. Watch out. Better get, trust me. Trust me.
My nerdy stat is a non-nerdy stat. I was just hoping, speaking of regression, I was hoping to find something magical like teams that win by 38 on the road lose every time the following week.
Some
And
super warped like
Yeah.
Nazi stat.
Yeah.
and I found
Rough.
the latest in the last 10 examples going back like 17 years, those teams are 7-3 the next week. And
So
margin
you're
of
saying those teams
victory-
are generally pretty good?
generally just good teams. You don't
that's
win by
crazy.
that much, and it's a fluke.
Yeah,
That's
but
the
but
takeaway
Sam,
here.
they beat
Yeah.
the Cowboys. Come on, how much credit can we
The 3-3 Cowboys.
They didn't have DeMarcus
Hey,
Lawrence.
everyone can't win 34-7 against some of the best teams in football. It's not for everybody.
I feel like we buried the lead a little bit here. We haven't touched on losing Aiden. Impact of losing Aiden
That's
Hutchinson,
rough,
the
dude.
defensive player of the year, is out
Oof.
for this game. What does that mean?
Who even rushes the passer for them now?
Oh, Lee McNeil.
Is it like- Just
Marcus
Houston, I think.
Davenport?
Like,
He's probably
Mark
He's out.
Davenport's on IR.
No, he's
He's
hurt.
IR.
Yeah, I mean,
He's out for
as-
the
as
season.
expected.
Have
yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we're talking about
Do
like
they still
street
have the
free
Amora
agents
cousins?
from their
What's going on here?
They're just going to bring Brian
We're all
Branch
looking
off
up
the
our
edge.
lads. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
no, it's like
I
their
can't.
Bo
My computer
Richters
won't
are going to
pull
be
up.
starting.
This is
like
bad.
it's rough.
Bo Richter.
Oh, my
And
God.
it's like they've had it's been their like a big problem on their defense has been
Pascal.
that the pressure has only come from Aiden Hutchinson. That like it has
No,
been everything funneled through him.
Inman, you mentioned Pascal. No, that's not. They essentially have one rusher. It's a weird scheme. Pascal is more of a defensive. He's an edge interior, kind of like
Almost like a fought or yeah. Okay.
yeah, like Red
Okay.
Bryant
Yeah.
was for the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
those Seahawks teams.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good example.
But yeah,
Red
man,
Bryant.
James Houston's hurt. Isaac Ukwu, I guess.
Houston
Isaac Ukwu?
was he hurt or was he a healthy scratch?
I mean, I guess he was just inactive. I don't know. It's not great if he's inactive though.
Yeah, he's been bad. It's really rough. So if like I'm on Hassan Reddick watch here, like they got to do something. If we
Hassan
think
Reddick
that the Vikings
announced
should go get a
just
running back
today-
because
He
Yeah.
announced just today that he wants to be a Jet for like the rest of whatever.
really,
Very weird situation. Yeah.
wow, like right at the moment that Detroit was going to give you everything you could have wanted.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're on the cusp.
Well, I guess he doesn't
In
have an agent
fairness,
anymore.
He's not
So
really a Detroit-ish guy because he's small. So I mean, that might be. I don't know if that
Like,
actually matters, but
if we're looking at Aaron Jones having a hip flexor for a couple of weeks and going, oh, we got to trade for Chuba Hubbard, like what do we say the Lions have to do here? They have to get desperate, right?
I saw some Azeez Ojulari steam that he could be available. Final year of his deal.
Okay.
That'd be
after
nice.
the game he had.
Like on purpose or
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, like
He's been
if
fine.
after, well, I mean, the game he just had this week, I would also be like, hey, by the way, I'm available. I didn't know if you know, I had a couple of sacks. I had one non-sack, but I got there. So
How about just the same name that gets flung out every year at the deadline, Clowney or Zadarius Smith? How about Zadarius Smith?
Yeah.
sure.
Fire sale in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Just continuous
probably where
tour
they're
through
at.
the
But you're
NFC
right.
North.
Like you pull up the depth chart, man, it's bleak. You're
It's
totally
bleak,
right.
yeah.
And it'd be different if he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, knowing he's toast for the rest of the year, and you got
Dude, the
Super Bowl
practice squad
aspirations.
doesn't even have guys.
Yeah,
What is
I
going
would
on
be picking
here?
up that phone for sure.
Al-Qadim Muhammad, former Saint. Great.
Like
rough.
they rolled in thinking it
FAU.
would be Davenport and Hutchinson, and they've lost both. Like it's just down to it. Like they just got the injury bug at that position really bad now, and losing Hutchinson is especially brutal because of it.
Seems like a theme developing with the Marcus Davenport faith that teams put in him. Legitimately easier to
the guy
imagine
next
TJ
door.
Hockenson having success if he doesn't have to double on Aiden Hutchinson for like 25 plays a game.
Yeah, that's
Pretty nice.
God,
Yeah.
that's so rough, dude.
But I hope Aiden Hutchinson comes back from this because he's an awesome player and that was horrible and I never want to see it again.
His
if
statistics
there are
this year
Lions
were
fans-
outstanding,
Dude, unbelievable. Dominated.
If Lions fans are listening, there is good news to it that because it's a bone fracture, like bones heal a lot better than ligaments do. Like you
And
have
it
to go through the
sounds like it's
recovery.
sounds like it's
Like
a
a clean
simple
break.
fracture too.
Yeah,
So
clean,
that's
simple
what doesn't matter.
fracture. You set that, and your body knows how to heal it. It'll take a while. It's going to take recovery time, right? Probably. I mean that's going to be an out for the season kind of injury. But like, you're getting him back for camp. This is not is he ever going to be the same guy again kind of injury. It's temporary in a way that like a knee injury you can never really truly say is.
So, by the way, his win percentage on pass rushes this year was 38.3%. Number 2, Myles Garrett, was at 27.5%.
So they just get him one-on-ones all day, huh? Is that was that
Yeah.
like the pass rush plan? Okay.
It's the whole, yeah, it all sets up for Aiden Hutchinson. It's like the whole deal.
Yeah, more or less what they were doing with what the Vikings been doing with Jonathan Grenard, but to less an extreme degree. Like sometimes they would give a two-way go to Jerry Tillery.
Oh my God, on
They-
true pass sets, it's 49.5%. Christ.
Come on.
Big betting week for this group. Update on our betting contest. We started with $1,000 mythical dollars, and we are all in profit now after Luke Braun hits David Montgomery 2 touchdowns at plus 410.
Extremely
And
stupid.
remember, the loser gets punished in this contest, and Arif Hasan is now in last place with 1,055. Despite going 2-0 for the week, Arif hits on the Bengals, and he hits on
Yeah,
Goff.
the NFC
under
North is
attempt.
going to send a 4th place team to the playoffs, and I'm going to lose with a profit. Jesus.
Surely we'll all remain in the profit.
I'm
By
I don't
year's
see
end.
it. We're
Nothing will
trending.
change. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
we're on pace
We're on pace.
to make hundreds of dollars each.
Collectively,
Hey, that's
our
what Luke
record-
has told me for the last year and a half. It only takes one.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's true.
How many more weeks do I got, by the way, to use this advantage?
3.
Like two.
2,
Yeah,
actually.
3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Maybe
have to,
3. Yeah.
to strategize.
I'm glad
here.
you didn't
Yeah.
use it this week because, I mean, it would have put me ahead of Luke if you did, but, like, cutting wins in half is not nearly as devastating as doubling losses.
Doubling the loss. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I'm the only one that lost money this week. I went 1-1, so I lost the juice on Pats plus 6.5. Terrible bet. And Laporta goes over 41.5 yards with 1 catch. Thank you. Thank you for the yak.
Hey, Luke, did you have some opinions about Laporta you wanted to share?
He's the fakest guy who's ever faked. I'm sorry, he's fake. You want to look at his highlights? How many busted coverages are on that tape, accounting for all of these? People talked about him as like a top 3 tight end. They were like, "Oh, look at the Lions! They traded T.J. Hockenson away, and they got a better one." No, they didn't. They got a busted coverage merchant. Yeah, go ahead and flea flicker again and see if he can line up and block for you, which he absolutely could not. Sam Laporta, fake fraud.
Sam
Lafugazi. Cook, chat. Get him.
YouTube Shorts is going to love this. Sam Laporta is a all caps
Come
fraud.
at me, Lions fans.
Do we have you?
Come defend your
We gotta
Sam's in
start
production
fraudulent-
mode, thinking about the shorts already.
Oh yeah, we've got the AI
love it.
technology that's going to find that. It's gonna
The
it's gonna pull
AI
it.
technology.
We do. You don't even realize what goes on.
Lions
behind the
fans,
scenes.
just be happy I'm not pitying you anymore. You're good enough that I
Yeah,
don't have to feel
I'm-
sorry for you.
I'm taking
and that
you
truly is the greatest
seriously,
compliment.
and now these are the consequences.
Yeah.
You're a real boy. Now go to work.
Yeah. if you were 2-4 again, I would have given this to you.
These are
Bad
the
dad
standings.
joke comment. Sam Laporta's the 4th best TE on the field this week behind Johnny Munt.
True. Good.
that might be true, actually.
True.
I'm 8-4.
Forverts Merchant. Johnny Munt.
$1,261 and change. I'm in the lead. Inman second, 1145. Braun now third, $1,058 despite his 4-8 mark. And Arif Hasan 7-5, but trailing.
7-5.
I'm as fake as Sam Laporta.
Seven. Okay, because I've been doing the minimums every week, except a couple extra dollars here or there to make it
Yeah.
spicy. Because I expected all of us to have losing records. That's how this goes.
Honestly, I mean, that was
I still
a
do.
smart strategy, dude. and don't worry.
The
I'm sure half
minimums
of
are
us
going
will
to
get there.
increase. Soon enough, it'll take 1-0-2 to get us to get any of us below. Like it's
Somebody
still
goes
you
on
have to make
tilt.
what it's 70 now.
Yeah.
So you go 0-2, you lose $140. That puts all of us except for Sam in the red. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So-
Luke
Pretty
would,
much.
Luke would
I'd be right
barely
there.
be above. Yeah.
But
Okay.
either way, I mean, yeah, we're all within what, $200 of each other? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyone's game.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tight. We make the bets for week 7 on Thursday. We continue the Vikings-Lions talk. We'll have a better read on the injury situation for Hockenson, Jones, and we'll see what pops up on the Lions as well. That's coming up on Thursday, where we should also hear from Ron Johnson. Check out his show tomorrow here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Luke Inman, Postcaster General. We've got Arif Hasan, wide left, Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings, and I'm Sam Ekstrom saying goodbye. Thank you for watching, listening, commenting. Talk to you next time.